Hello, my name is Joe Kappa. I want to thank you for tuning into my channel. It's CappaTime. What I mean by that is I've uncovered a lot of information, and what I've come to find is nobody knows it yet. It kind of ties a lot of things we've learned, a lot of things we're taught in school, a lot of things we do as practice and tradition and holidays. It kind of ties it all together. And it all starts with one thing. The present narrative we teach in our schools is an agreed upon narrative. It is not necessarily the truth. And in fact, it's considered like a meal when you go to university. And that's why the classes are called courses, because they feed you this meal. And if you're really well versed in these items, you will progress far in this life, and you will take up active positions in the civil parts of our world, etc. But there's a number of things that we just don't know. And I'm going to show you. And I promise I'll tell you how. And I'll give you the whys, the wheres, the whos, the whens, all that later. But I can't do that now. It would take forever to explain. So let's just talk about the what. Well, starting around 333 CE in the Christian era, 3 and 3 in sacred math, 3 is creation and 9 is God. So in the year 333, something started called the Purge. And all the various religious Christian sects were attacking and wiping out all the Gnostics. And it got so bad that they called the Council of Nicaea in 343 CE, approximately, I believe. And it was meant to put a stop to the violence to each other. And among other things, they agreed on the holidays, that's all. But they also agreed that you can be different religious sects and practice different ways, and you can even be Jewish as long as you were against the Gnostics. You get a pass as long as you were against the Gnostics. So that fascinated me when I learned that back in high school, and I started and embarked on a journey. Why? Why did they kill the Gnostics? And it's because they didn't want us to know, the early Holy Roman Empire didn't want us to know certain things that the Gnostics knew, and I wondered why. And that's what they call the Dark Ages, ladies and gentlemen. After the collapse of Rome, but the continuation of the Holy Roman Empire, it became dark because what you were allowed to know was regulated now by the church. And so this purge started, and it got rid of all the Gnostics. So what is it? What did they know? So I looked into what they did, and it's opened a whole bunch of things to me here. Ooh, we hear the chimes. But it opened up a whole bunch of things, and it starts with something real simple. The Gnostics knew what the real year was, first of all. And they lived in their year, but according to the way they kept track of time and kept track of the years, the real year is 23,771 presently. Using their measuring system, the real year of Western civilization is 23,771. That's just one of many things I have to teach you. But it's too much information to do all at once. So I'm going to break it down into 6, 7, 8, 10-minute little videos and break it down into chunks. And we're going to start with the basics, because everything I do builds upon the basics being true. If the basics are true, then this. If the basics are true, then that. So let's find out what the basics are. What is the what? Well, the first thing the Gnostics knew were the 3 laws of On. The Gnostics called God On before the Bible took over. God was called On from the beginning of human civilization, according to the Gnostics. 21,748 would have been year 1. And going back that far, God was called On. And Am, described me. On described God. Am describes me, I am. These go back to the beginning, these things. Ma, da, na for children. Na means children's children, yet we say nana to mean grandma. But the very basic syllables go all the way back to the beginning, according to the Gnostics. So what else did they know? Well, these 3 laws of On, and there's 3 of them, and I'm being very important about this, apparently were known by the Sumerians and were taught to the Sumerians, according to their clay tablets and clay cylinders, by the Anunnaki. And the first thing people want to say is, oh, Anunnaki, those space aliens who ruled Earth and bred mankind in cages. And no, 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 no. That's Sumerian mythology of something that had happened thousands of years before that was now mythologized. But the Anunnaki is Sumerian and it's two words. Anu, Na, Ki. Anu, An is God. Anu is of God. Anu-Na is children of God. Got it? And Ki is Mother Earth. And going back to the very beginning of Western civilization, it became fashionable. Back in the age of the goat, back in the age of Capricorn, these are the ages of mankind. And going back to the age of Capricorn, the tradition of calling baby goats and baby humans descendants of Ki became popular. 21,000 years ago, it became popular to call baby goats and baby children's descendants of Ki. Kids. So everything we do, you've heard of, but it's all been scrambled up like eggs for a reason, because they don't want you to know the truth. And what I'm going to ultimately show you through the whole thing of videos is, one, there is other intelligent life out there that's just like us. Two, they have the same science and math we do. Three, that science and math tells us that An, not the post-apocalyptic God, Yahweh, or whoever, who threw fireballs at us, but the original understanding, An, consciousness, the light of the world, the light to life, right? The sun is to physical matter like An is to life. Okay, so the analogy, they didn't believe a ball of fire was God, those old sun worshippers. The relationship of us to God and the relationship of physical matter to the sun are exactly the same. And you can describe the same. That's everybody loves to bask in the rays of God's love. Everybody loves to bask in the rays of the sun. Get it? The sun created us. Well, God created us. All of the analogies go. And that's the old sun worshippers. And they had the three laws. And what are these three laws that got all scrambled up like eggs? Well, believe it or not, I don't have time to explain the hows, the whys, the wheres, I know, but they're science, math, and history. And you've heard of all of them, but all scrambled up and all changed. And over the last 2,000 years, we've been teaching a false narrative. Remember the menu being taught by universities. Curriculum, an authorized menu. So that's what a curriculum is, basically a series of meals or courses you will be served. Okay? Anyway, so it all goes back, it all ties into the same, and every archaeologist, every science, every historian, every academic who stands on the shoulders of their predecessors and teaches you is teaching you, honest to God, what they think is true. But it's all based on a false premise. It's all with lack of knowledge of the three laws of An. If you knew the three laws of An, half of the questions would be answered. You would know, one, there is other intelligent life, and it's just like us. And that means we're here by intent, which is conscious will. The second thing is their math and their science is the same as ours. And it means their life cycle is the same as ours. And there are 13 stages to life. And we grow by the Fibonacci sequence. Nobody knows this, but there's 13 stages to life. You're not supposed to know that. It comes from the third law of An. And so does the year. How do we get to 23,771? You got to first learn what the third law of An is. So I'll start with the three laws of An. They are science, math, and history. Tune in to the next episode, and we'll start with the first law of An, because I need to teach you the first two in order for you to understand how we do three. And when you hear it, it's going to rewrite your entire paradigm. Among other things you're going to find is that there was an apocalypse. Halloween is actually a memorial of the day of the apocalypse, October 31, approximately 10,800 BCE. Okay? There was an apocalypse and 7 comets, and the last one was the Earth Killer. And that's what the Chinese dragon and the feathered serpent of the Mesoamericans and the 7-headed snake headwear that the ancient priests would wear, sometimes with the middle one being much larger, because the 7th one destroyed Earth. It wiped out humanity. It carved the Grand Canyon in a matter of times and went through a 2-mile sheet of ice and scalded and made the Scablands, 100 square miles or so of melted rock that was melted with temperatures about 10 to 20,000 degrees at an instant blast. So what could have done it? To liquefy it. Well, now you know. And it caused the Grand Canyon, so it was the Earth Killer, and it sent us into 1,200 years of darkness and winter. And although it eventually got lighter, it stayed winter. That's the Younger Dryas, silly people. And it was ended around 9600 BCE when another solar event blasted a piece of ice off of the Greenland ice sheet into the Atlantic Ocean, causing a tidal wave. It sunk the continent of Atlantis under the water permanently. Atlantis, Antarctica, the continent that's underwater. People don't put two and two together. So there was hell and high water, as the Sumerian clay tablets tell us. And the zodiac that comes from the third law of On, what? Yes, the first law you've heard of is 4 words. As above, so below. It's science. It means the one is the sample of the many. One oak leaf looks like all oak leaves. One maple leaf looks like all maple leaves. One snake looks like all snakes. One human looks like all humans. It allows us to categorize everything in the world. So the first law is true. And the first numbnuts, the first Nimrods, if you will, said, well, the first law, we don't know if it's true where we can't see. So science now, over the last millennia, have proven that as above, so below, our ability to categorize everything, and we can categorize the animal kingdom into phylum and genus and family and class and species, right, all the way down. We can categorize everything. And thanks to science, we now know it works on the microscopic level. We can categorize viruses and germs and bacteria. It works on the subatomic level. We can subatomic protons and neutrons and electrons and quarks and even taus. Anybody know there's taus? Of course there is. That's the part of a photon. Anyway, so that happens. And so the first law is true everywhere, and it's true on the cosmic level. It is true. We can categorize stars. We can categorize different types of galaxies. We can even categorize standard supernovas. From the standard supernova, we get the standard candle. All supernovas seem to be the same brightness. It just matters what's the distance from here to there. How we measure in space. So the first law is true everywhere. And if it is true everywhere, then one Earth is a sample of all Earths. Stop where you are. Don't even think any further. One Earth is a sample of all Earths. Okay? And that means that life up to humanoid, and no further, we know from our own personal experience, we know from the Bible, humanoid's the top thing in the universe, and it's everywhere, wherever it can be. In the infinity of the universe, it's gigantic, it's ginormous. I think in a small patch that we can see, there's something like 200 trillion galaxies, and each containing hundreds of billions of stars. I mean, the numbers just in the patch we can see is what we would go by almost call infinite. So there's life like us out there, and they're just like us. They go through the same life cycle stages we do, 13 of them, based upon revolutions around their sun. And their planet goes on a flat disk around their sun, either clockwise or counterclockwise. Depends on how they formed. And they would measure their growth based upon revolutions around their sun, just like we do, called years of life or ages. And, right? And they would be just the same, and they would have 13 stages. You've got to crawl before you can walk. You've got to hit puberty before you can mate. Am I wrong? Right? So, am I wrong? This is how it works. So the first law is true everywhere, but it says that life up to humanoid is not only everywhere throughout our universe. Again, as above, so below. That means there's multiverses, just like ours. Can't be any different than ours, which means they have humanoids in them too. So whatever's going on here, humanoid is here by intent. Humanoid, highest thing in this dimension, the best operating machine, the most conscious vessel. We are vessels for souls. Souls are the vessel holding a consciousness is a soul. Okay? There's consciousness here, and consciousness is God. You'll get to that's what On is, and we'll get to all that later. But the first law tells us that we're here by intent, and intent is conscious will. So consciousness, universal, it's infinite. It takes up no time or space. There's nothing else we know of that we know exists that takes up no time and space and is infinite. And that's consciousness. If you've ever experimented with consciousness, you know that to be a fact and you wouldn't question it. If you've never experimented with consciousness, you have no ability to make a judgment call now. Just listen to what I have to teach. So the first law tells us that we are here by intent and conscious will, and consciousness is behind all of this. We're here by conscious will. Matter of fact, the word human is Om, the chant. Join in the sound of creation, Om Manu, Omen, human. Okay? The oldest prayer in the world, because God is consciousness, and everything that is conscious has God in it. That's what makes you part of God. People who say, oh, there's no proof there's a God. You're conscious. By being conscious, you are plugged into this thing we call reality. You are conscious. And you can be an actor in it. Right? So that's a different understanding. And the oldest prayer, therefore, is me, I am, on. Good. The light of the world. I am on. Amen. That's what amen means. I am God. And that's what you are. You're a vessel holding consciousness, and consciousness is God. Now you understand? So God didn't cause the cataclysms, the apocalypse, or the flood that we experienced. It was natural disasters. God had nothing more to do with it than you or I did. Okay? But all of our Western religions are based on the fact that God threw fireballs at us. So it's a bad idea of God now. It's an outdated. We now know the truth. We can see past the dark age of this menu that we've been taught for 2,000 years and go back and connect with the older ones. So now let's start to teach you the first law. And the first law says not only how to categorize the world, but it ultimately tells us consciousness is behind all of this. Isn't that funny? So therefore any argument against God is wrong. And if you don't think that the word on is important to you to this day, let's start right here, and so I can finish the first law. A-N-I in Sumerian meant by God. A-N-U, as we know from Anu, right? Anunnaki comes Anu, of God. So an annulment is canceled by consent. That's what annulment is. An annulment is canceled by consent of God. Now does it make sense? Okay? And animate means moved by God. Moved by consciousness. That's what animate means. And animal, right? Animal, mal in Sumerian means made. So animal means made by God. That's why we call them God's creatures. Oh, by the way, the first law tells us that this is a creation and evolution is how it plays out. So for all of you who's looking for a shortcut, no, that's the right answer. It's conscious will, and it took all of that to make this. And I am sharing it with you. Why? Because I'll tell you why down the road. I saw the Golden Book. I learned all of this in a matter of seconds, staring at, in my mind's eye, the Golden Book in a dream. And I'll explain all that later. But I saw all of this. And now doesn't it all make perfect sense? All the things I know are interrelated. And I'm hoping I'm not going too fast. If I am, leave a comment, leave a like, leave a hate, whatever. Let me know. I'm going to stop for now. We've known the first law. Okay? And it tells us there is a God, and it tells us that there's multiverses, and they're all just like us, and there's other humanoids just like us. It puts an end to all of the conflict. That's what the first law teaches us, and that's what it truly means. All right, I'm signing off. Tune in for episode 2. Thank you.